questions. Do you have any idea how cemeteries get located, or cemeteries are located? Have you ever heard of orphan trains? You know what an orphan train is? Do you fellas know what an orphan train is? Do you know what an orphan is? Okay, it's somebody whose parents have died and they are on their own. Long time ago, there were a lot of orphans on the East Coast, and they decided they would put them on trains and send them out toward where the new settlers were, and they would stop in towns and people would adopt children off of that or get people to come off and work for them. So that was the orphan train. And the last thing that I want to ask you is, if you're wondering about how and my name is Pamela Jack Butler, ended up talking to you about the Brown burial site. So here's the story. Here before you rests a family whose story is woven deeply into the beginnings of Morning Sun itself. A story of love, loss, compassion, and quiet strength. William P. Brown was born in 1793 and died in 1865. He stands at the beginning of this legacy. William was not only a father, but later an adopted grandfather in spirit and in deed. After the heartbreaking loss of his son Thomas, William made a decision that would shape this community for generations. At the time, Thomas was buried at Rice Cemetery, which is about 3 miles north of here. Quite a distance in those days. William and his wife Alice found that separation unbearable. They longed for a place closer to home, where they could rest together. In his grief and his hope, William deeded the land that would become Elmwood Cemetery to the town of Morning Sun, ensuring that families would never again have to bury their loved ones so far away. Because of him, Elmwood became not just a cemetery, but a place of belonging. And if you go up to the City Hall and look at the plaque of Morning Sun, you will see that from Division Street, which is the one that goes by the library and down toward the school, north and west, there are 2 additions. One is Brown Addition number 1, and the second one is Brown Addition 2. My mother grew up in a house that's no longer there, at the northeast corner of the cemetery. And I can remember her telling me that it was all family all around there. And I'm assuming that was all ground that was owned by the Browns originally, and the families were all settled around in there. That's an assumption. Beside him, in both life and purpose, was Alice Crawford Brown. Now, I have read lots of books about women like Alice Crawford Brown. I'd never known this about her. She was a woman remembered for her strength and remarkable knowledge. Alice was known throughout the area as quite the doctor, although she held no formal title. She possessed a deep understanding of herbs and home remedies and was often the first person called when illness struck. Neighbors remembered her willingness to help at any hour, saddling her horse in the middle of the night to go wherever she was needed. In an era with limited medical care, Alice was a lifeline, offering comfort, healing, and reassurance to many in Morning Sun. Their daughter, Martha Brown, carried forward that same spirit of care, though in a different way. Remember when I talked to you about orphan guys? Remember when I talked to you about the orphan trains? Listen, Martha never married, but her life was rich with purpose. When the orphan train stopped in Morning Sun, a moment that changed countless lives, Martha's heart was captured by a young girl named Fanny Love. Martha took Fanny into her home, adopted her, and raised her as her own. What began as an act of compassion became a lifelong bond. Fanny Love grew up to make Morning Sun her true home. She married Wilbur Durye and became known for her creativity and love of art. Fanny expressed herself through her artwork, leaving behind pieces that reflected both talent and tenderness. Tragically, her life was cut short when she and her daughter died during childbirth, a loss that echoed painfully through her family. Wilbur later remarried Wilbur Durye and had 4 more children, 4 daughters, Martha, Amy, Fanny, and Virginia. And Virginia was my mother. So W.O. Durye is my grandfather, and that's how I'm involved in this. Martha Brown stepped in once again, not just as an aunt, but as a fifth grandparent, embracing those children with deep affection. She adored them, ensuring that love did not end with loss. After Fanny's death, Martha arranged for Fanny's artwork to be recreated by artist Laura Rock, preserving her legacy and gifting the pieces to Wilbur and his family, a final loving tribute to the daughter she had chosen and cherished. And I grew up with a painting over in the southeast corner of the living room, which I didn't like. It was big and it was dark. It was evergreens and there was a log across a creek, and I just thought it was really ugly. My mother told me that the name of it was Fallen Soldier, and Fanny Love had painted this to honor the veterans who had died. And Laura Rock then copied this painting. And Mother would always say to me, that is a Laura Rock, but it's not a Laura Rock. And the explanation was that if Laura Rock created the paintings herself, she signed them. If she copied them, she refused to take credit for that. So that is Laura Rock and my relationship with that family. Another story that I have about Aunt Martha Brown is, I say, I grew up knowing that name, Aunt Martha Brown, always. Mother would talk about Aunt Martha Brown gathering up whoever, the girls, whoever, get on a train here in Morning Sun early in the morning, go to Burlington, and go to the department store of Schramm's. I don't know if you're familiar with Schramm's, but at that time, it was really impressive. Aunt Martha Brown would be escorted up to the third floor, and she would be seated, and they would bring all of the goods for her to look at and decide what she wanted to buy and take home and what she didn't want. And then in the evening, they would get back on the train and come up to Morning Sun on the evening train. So that was my beginning. And this is Aunt Martha Brown's stone here. Now, until about an hour and a half ago, that stone was down. And I did not know about this, but my mother said close to the time she died that she had always wanted to put a better stone in there commemorating what Aunt Martha Brown had done for the community. As I said, it was face down. My son Brandon was here, walked over and was able to put it back up, and we were able to take stuff off of it and get it seated a little bit more. So I'm sure that my mother is smiling down from heaven to see that that was righted after all this time. So finally, today, William, Alice, Martha, and Fanny rest here in the family in the Elmwood Cemetery. Also, all four daughters, Martha, Fanny, Amy, and my mother, are buried here in this cemetery with our families too. So, this was the very ground made possible by William's vision and grief. As you stand here, you are not just among headstones. You are standing within a story of family built not only by blood, but by choice, compassion, and unwavering love. And I know this is being filmed, but I want to say that in every presentation I've done, I've always given credit to Amy Herring for conceiving this, carrying it through, compiling. She has done a beautiful job.